Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to go over another excerpt from Paul Duncan's book. Before we begin, consider subscribing if you're new here and hit that like button if you enjoy these kind of videos. Now in this one, it's a back and forth between Paul and George, where George starts to actually explain Anakin's death. Not so much him transferring into the next realm and, becoming a Force ghost, but right before that, sacrificing himself, for his son, and essentially the whole theme of Darth Vader and Star Wars in general. It's pretty insightful, so let's read it and then we can talk about it a little bit. Paul says, once you see the whole story, it makes sense and it's incredibly moving. I think on the landing platform on Endor when Vader says, "It's too late for me, son," this is the first time he calls him son, and it's the moment when Vader becomes human again. George goes on to say, that's right, the point is his son saved him. His son saved him by doing the very thing that Vader couldn't do. Luke wouldn't turn to the dark side, and unfortunately, that's what Vader did. Anakin wanted to save his wife, says George, but it wasn't possible except with sort of black magic, which is what Anakin, and I'm adding in here, which is what Anakin believed the lies of Sidious. Sidious said that, only through me can you achieve the power to save the one you love. Only through me can you achieve immortality. And so Anakin started to think, well, okay, yeah, I guess this sort of power is the only thing I need. And so Anakin started to think, okay, well, this is really the only way that I can save Padme, and the Jedi aren't helping me, so I'm gonna go with this guy and use this sort of black magic sort of thing. Now, as for Palpatine using black magic, I'm really interested to learn more about it because he does so in Legends, but he also does in Rebels. Remember him doing the whole world between worlds thing with the blue fire and Ezra and Ahsoka and how he reached his hand through there? Like, it's just, all of that is pretty interesting stuff that I feel like Sith magic is something that hasn't really been dived into all that much in canon at all, except for maybe that scene. So it's for sure an avenue that I could see them going in sometime in the future if they really want to touch on that, because I think it's something that a lot of people would be interested in. How did Sidious learn to do magic? But it is a little bit tricky when you start to incorporate magic into Star Wars, because then really kind of anything is possible. It's kind of like the world between worlds, which I wasn't a fan of, because then you can just pretty much do anything. George goes on to say the dark side made him feel all-powerful, and all-powerful means I can do whatever I want, I can be selfish. If I want to save my wife out of selfish reasons, I can do that, even though he couldn't because she died. So this little part here too, where George talks about Anakin being selfish, is entirely true, because he also mentions somewhere else, I forgot where I read it, I think it was in one of these books, or it was another interview. George was talking about how Anakin essentially loves Padme selfishly. He doesn't want to save her because so much that he wants her to be alive for her. He wants to save her for him. He doesn't want to be in pain to be without her, because once she's dead, she's dead. She doesn't feel pain anymore, but he'll be the one feeling pain, and he can't live without her. Now, of course, it doesn't make sense what I'm saying. If Anakin were to hear it, he'd be like, no, of course I love my wife and I want her to be alive. But essentially, if you think about it, it's not like she's really wanting him to do all of those terrible things for her to stay alive. If she knew all of the stuff that he was going to do in order for her to be alive and not die in his, visions and his dreams, which is just his paranoia essentially, she would have said, no way, let me die. I'm not gonna die for, you can do all this stuff to all these people and kill these younglings and betray the Jedi Order just so I can live, screw that. She was a woman of the people and she wouldn't have put her life first. So Anakin was being extremely selfish by just allowing his love for her and his fear of her being gone and the pain that he couldn't deal with if she died to fuel him to do all of these terrible things to everybody in the galaxy. George goes on to say it's a war between selflessness and selfishness, which I believe, opposites attract. Padme was very selfless and Anakin became very selfish. And I blame part of this because of the Jedi not listening to him when he had these issues. I remember when he went to Yoda to talk to him about the issues that he had with Padme. He didn't mention it was Padme, but he had visions of someone dying, and Yoda basically just told him to deal with it, essentially. He said, don't mourn them, don't worry about them. How are you supposed to do that when you're literally in turmoil and being tormented by visions of death of someone you care for? George goes on to say, Luke is not trying to get some magic potion. He does not accept the Emperor's offer of come to the dark side and you can be all powerful. When Vader sees his son willing to give up his life to save him, kill me. I am not going that way no matter what. This is what turns him. It is the end of Vader's journey to the dark side. And so for me, that's extremely beautiful. You have the son. In the end, Vader did save the day. He did become the chosen one and fulfill the prophecy. But in the end, it was Luke who was the catalyst who helped Anakin come back. And Luke, unlike Anakin, didn't care for the black magic. He didn't care to be all powerful and to have everything under the sun, or everything under the Death Star, that Palpatine was about to offer him. Which honestly makes me kind of wonder, if Anakin's mom never died, would Anakin really have been so hell-bent on stopping others from dying? Let's say Anakin had saved his mom. Let's say Anakin had gone to Tatooine when he had first told Obi-Wan Kenobi at the very beginning of Attack of the Clones. She'd probably still be alive, and she'd probably still be okay, and Anakin probably wouldn't have been so hell-bent on trying to save others from death. His mom dying is probably something that sparked a lot of the visions that he had, but of course we know that Anakin's main power was him being able to see into the future, and there are also other fan theories, which I don't know are true or not, about Palpatine putting those visions inside Anakin's head. And then of course there's the third thing, you know, Qui-Gon's thing, the will of the Force. It was the will of the Force that Anakin would become a Sith Lord and go down the path that he went down. So it all kind of just leads back to one thing, is that Anakin was destined to fall. It is the tragedy of Darth Vader, and that's, you know, something George Lucas has said himself. And in the end, it took his son's love, it took his son's ability to do what Anakin could not, to turn away the powers and the temptation of the dark side, the temptation of everything that he could want, and to turn all of that down to save his father and to save his own legacy, to know that I'm not going to turn down this path no matter what. Which of course is the tragedy of Darth Vader. It is the story of Darth Vader, and I feel like that's something a lot of people miss. And it's through years and years of me watching Star Wars and reading these kinds of books with George Lucas explaining the story of Darth Vader that I really started to really understand properly what his journey was like. He's not this all-powerful, frightening being. He's a very sad and depressed person who has made some very unfortunate decisions based on the values he thought he cherished, only to be tricked and fooled by the devil himself, by the Emperor, and lost everything in the process, including his own wife, his life, and his best friends, the Jedi, and his identity. You guys remember that scene on Mustafar where Anakin was crying? So a lot of people think that's because Anakin was sad for all the things that he just did, including the youngling scene. It's actually not. He didn't even think of that stuff. He was thinking about, and this is from the Revenge of the Sith novel by Matthew Stover, he was thinking about how different he has become now. This path that he had as a little kid, and he was remembering himself on Tatooine as a little boy racing pod racers. He was like, this dream I had of becoming a Jedi Knight and, you know, saving the slaves and all this and that, look at what I've become. Look at what has happened to me now. I am so far from that dream, so far from that vision, and it's just so sad to see what happened to him. So if you ever see that scene again, just remember that's exactly what happened there. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little excerpt and my thoughts and my theories on it, and my explanation of what I think really went down and what this all means. Of course, every interpretation is valid, so I implore you to go and purchase these books or check them out at least and have your own thoughts on them. And, you know, comment back in this comment section or go on StarWarsTheory.com and, you know, make a forum thread and start talking about different parts of the book that you enjoyed or something that you want me to talk about, and I would love to cover that. Please type 1 right now in the comments if you made it this far in the video. I just want to see who actually stays to the very end, you know? I love you guys. I appreciate you, whether you watch for a second or you watch until right now. So I'll see you in the next video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you very soon. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.